NFL season is just days away, and if you play fantasy football, this will help you. Here are 6 players you should take sooner in drafts, starting with Falcons rookie wide receiver, who currently goes as the 37th wide receiver off the board in fantasy drafts. However, London was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and top 10 NFL wide receivers finished 27th overall over the last 15 years in fantasy. And London is far better than the average top 10 prospect. I mean, check this out. He earned last year in just 8 games, because he ended up getting injured, he averaged 11 receptions per game and 136 yards per game. He went over 1,000 yards in just 8 games. Now, the craziest part, London just turned 21 years old this past April. So at 20 years old, he was averaging 11 receptions, 136 yards, smashing college records last year. And London is the clear number 1 wide receiver in Atlanta. I mean, let's look at the guys behind him. You have Bryan Edwards, who they just traded for after he only had 45 career catches in 2 seasons with Derek Carr, and now he's going to have Mariota. You have Auden Tate, who they also recently acquired. He has just 17 receptions since 2019, more of a jump ball specialist. Olamide Zaccheaus in 3 years has 50, 53, 54 receptions in Atlanta. I mean, we can keep going here. You get Damiere Byrd, who's a veteran, but he's never had over 50 receptions in a season, more of a downfield option. There's no threats in the receiving game for Mr. Drake London. Now, this next tight end has top 3 upside, and you can sometimes get him outside the top 10 tight ends. Now, last season, Eagles and Cardinals tight end, he split time with 2 teams. He was a top 5 tight end in efficiency. And efficiency for me is target rate, how good you are at generating targets compared to the other teammates on your team, and yards per route run. He was top 10 in yards per route run, top 5 in target rate. When you combine them, he ended up being top 5 in overall efficiency. He actually earned more targets per route than Travis Kelce, and your ability to earn targets is the greatest predictor of future success. Now, it gets even better for Ertz, because Christian Kirk is now gone, and DeAndre Hopkins will miss the first 6 games of the year with a suspension. And last year, this is what Ertz did without Hopkins. He ended up averaging 7.5 targets per game. But there's a very important point to point out here, and that is, out of these games, 13 games without Hopkins, some of those was when he was on the Eagles, when you just do a data split like this. So we have to add the context of when he actually went to the Cardinals. And in games when he was on the Cardinals, which is all we care about without Hopkins, he averaged 9 targets per game. And his connection with Kyler Murray was strong right from the start. On the season, he averaged 10.6 fantasy points per game, but once he linked up with Kyler Murray, it ended up going up to 11.9 points per game and 7.9 targets per game. Both of those numbers last year would have been top 5 amongst tight ends. Now, check out why this next running back has number 1 overall upside. Saquon Barkley's 2021 season was riddled with injuries. You can check them out here. He was limited week 1 off of his ACL. He didn't even practice or play in any preseason games. He then missed weeks 6 through 9 with an ankle, and then he was limited when he came back after the bye week in week 11 with that same ankle injury. But now he's healthy, and this is important to note because Saquon has played 2 healthy seasons and finished as a top 7 RB in both of those years. Now, you might be saying, oh, but that's because Eli Manning was checking it down a lot. Well, this next stat actually surprised me, and that's this number right here, 22%. That's the amount that Daniel Jones targeted running backs last year, and it was a top 10 rate in the NFL. So he's actually checking it down even though he's mobile, which is great news for Saquon, but it doesn't stop here, because this might be the best offensive line Saquon has ever had. Last year in 2021, the Giants was a borderline bottom 10 unit, because since last season, the Giants, they've increased their offensive line. I mean, look at this thing. They have 13 guys on their current depth chart. They added 3 free agents, and they drafted 3 guys in the NFL draft, including number 4 overall pick, who a lot of people had as the number 1 guy on their board, and Evan Neal, the offensive tackle from Alabama. And not only is the offensive line good for Saquon, but he has 0 threats in his backfield. There's Matt Breida, who the Giants only gave $277,000 in guaranteed money to. Their second-year player who they drafted last year was kind of a surprise, I believe, out of Arizona, and Gary Brightwell, who saw just 2 career touches last year. There's Jashawn Corbin, who was an undrafted free agent. He was talented in college, but it's an uphill battle that he even makes the roster at this point. And then there's a fullback on the roster, and lastly, Antonio Williams, who has 12 career carries. All of this to say, you should feel confident drafting Saquon and this next back in round 15. Now, Lions running back Jamaal Williams has finished as a top 36 back in 3 straight seasons on separate teams. He did it on both the Packers and the Lions. Despite this, he currently goes in drafts as the running back 54. That's too late in my opinion. And there's one big reason I have confidence in him, and that's because all of his coaches over the years on separate teams, they trust him. Let me explain. And I tweeted out the 2 ways that they trust him. The first one is ball security. The guy only has 1 career fumble, and the second one is pass protection. He's a top 10% pass protector since 2017, which is when he entered the league. And this trust in Williams shows based on the fact that they gave him 14 opportunities per game, the most of any backup running back, quote-unquote backup running back last year. And if you just look at the games when DeAndre Swift was active, not the games where he missed and Williams saw more work, he still saw over 13 opportunities per game. And Williams' 46% opportunity share, which is pretty dang close to being a 50-50 split here, suggests that this is more of a split backfield in Detroit than we're leading on to believe. And that shows because DeAndre Swift, an elite receiver, receiver, really good per touch in the receiving game. He was outside the top 50 running backs in efficiency on the ground. Williams was actually better. Now, this next guy is the best late round tight end you can target, and that man's name is Austin Hooper, who last year he fell victim to the entire Browns team because of Baker Mayfield playing through a gruesome separated shoulder injury. However, before last year, he was basically a top 20 tight end every single season. His rookie season, he split time, so he was 39th, but once he became a starter, 20th, 8th, 3rd, 19th, and then last year was 25th because of that injury to Baker. And this is encouraging because you can now buy him at his absolute lowest point. Normally he goes like a top 15 tight end. This year, he's going as a tight end 24 as he enters Tennessee. And he actually has a chance to be Ryan Tannehill's #1 option this year, believe it or not. And this is encouraging. Since Ryan Tannehill joined the Titans in 2019, he targets tight ends at a 25% clip, which is the 4th highest rate during that time. But this isn't the only reason you want Hooper. You also want Hooper because there's not much competition in Tennessee. You have Treylon Burks, who's a rookie. He has some conditioning concerns. He seems to be over that in camp right now, but still a rookie. There's Robert Woods, who is 30 years old, coming off of an ACL tear. You have Nick Westbrook, who has 41 career receptions. Look, this is a good situation for Hooper. If he's not going to be the #1 option, he could easily be the 2 here. Now, I currently have Hooper in my top 209 spots ahead of ADP, the average draft position, which is the consensus, the market, the group think. And if you want to check out my entire top 200, my tiers, my wants and avoids list, my rankings, and a whole lot more, you could do so by clicking the link in the description and following the 2 simple steps to acquire your supreme cheat sheet. But not only that, I'll throw in a $20 Amazon gift card. And to make this as risk-free as possible, if you don't enjoy the cheat sheet, I'll refund your minimum deposit. $10 is what it takes to get. And you can keep this $20 Amazon gift card. So if you want to join the hundreds of people who are currently using the cheat sheet, you can click the link in the description to learn more. Now, the #1 value in Carolina is currently Robbie Anderson, who's the clear #2 for new quarterback Baker Mayfield. Now, despite this, Robbie Anderson currently goes as the 69th wide receiver in drafts, and he's going behind #3 wide receivers on teams like Van Jefferson, KJ Osborne. Jamison Crowder might be the #4 on his team. And very quietly, Robbie Anderson is getting the best quarterback of his career. Let me explain. Baker's 2021 season shouldn't be held against him. He ended up playing through a shoulder injury because he's a quote-unquote warrior out there. And this shoulder injury made it difficult to just simply get out of bed, let alone play quarterback in the NFL. In his rookie season of 2018, he was a top 10 quarterback in Pro Football Focus. 2019, the year in between there, with a really bad situation with Freddie Kitchens, he was still a borderline top 15 quarterback. So basically, every single year that he's been in the league, he's been hovering around top 10 to top 15 at the quarterback position when he's healthy. So here's another way to look at this. Baker Mayfield's worst season of his career was still better than the best season of Sam Darnold's career. That is profound. And one more thing. Over 30% of Robbie Anderson's targets last year in 2021, they were uncatchable. And this is because Sam Darnold ranked 32nd amongst quarterbacks in accuracy rating last year. You could expect more accurate targets from Baker in 2022. Now, these are 5 players that you should take sooner in drafts. But if you want to see 5 risky players that your friends think are safe, then check out this lovely video right here. And then you can laugh to yourselves when your friends take one of those running backs in the 2nd round of your draft. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe.